Welcome back to Behind the Caution Tape. I'm your host, CrashLit. A lot coming up this week, but also a lot to get into from last week. So let's get into all of it right now. But before we do, be sure to check out my new merch line that I collabed with for the USC bookstore, Mitchell and Ness line. So there's this jersey that I'm wearing, also the jacket, long sleeve tee, sweatpants, beanie, and baseball cap. All of them have a CrashLit Forever logo. This one's on the back side of this, so you can't see it. But still, it's a really fun collab, so be sure to check it out. I'll put a link in the description of this episode. So when you're watching, you can just go right there and click and buy. So yeah, definitely check it out. It's a really cool collab. It's super fun to do it, so be sure to check that out. Then also be sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. If you like the video version, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel at CrashLit. Be sure to follow me everywhere on social media, primarily Instagram at CrashLit. And be sure to also catch me on The Voice of College Football every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific Time, when I join Matt Zemek, Ethan Inman, and Nolan Ezett for a fuller and deeper discussion on USC football. So let's start with the news from football. Last Tuesday, USC's schedule was released, and we're going to go through it game by game, since I think that'll be kind of the best way. So USC will play in Week 0 again. On August 29th, they'll host an opponent that is yet to be named. On September 5th, they'll host Fresno State, and we'll see former linebackers coach Matt Entz return to the Coliseum. September 12th, they'll host Louisiana at the Coliseum. So 3 straight games at home to open the year. Then on September 19th, they will make their first road game of the year when they head to play Rutgers in Piscataway. On the following week, September 26th, USC will host Oregon. A week later, on October 3rd, USC will host Washington. On the 10th of October, USC will head to Penn State and take on new head coach Matt Campbell and former defensive coordinator Danton Lynn. USC will then have its first bye week of the year on October 17th before a game at Wisconsin on October 24th. Then on actual Halloween, October 31st, USC will host Ohio State and then take its second bye week of the season. Then on November 14th, USC will travel to Indiana for a matchup with the defending national champion Hoosiers in Bloomington. On November 21st, USC will host Maryland for its final home game of the season. And then on November 28th, USC will play at UCLA. Now, whether that one is the Rose Bowl or SoFi Stadium, still TBD, but definitely, obviously, great to end the season with the Crosstown Showdown. Obviously, as we know, no Notre Dame on the schedule, but USC is still not locked up that final opponent. And I think with playing Week 0, trying to play Week 0 and get 2 byes, that certainly makes things tricky. And as Ryan Karchi reported this morning in his Times of Troy letter, USC actually USC still has to, wants to play the game at home. You can only play against a team that's also playing at Hawaii. So there aren't many teams that fit that criteria, and then the one that Karchi is seeing that makes sense is San Jose State. So we'll see what happens there with all that, but really it's it's a little tough to not see that, if I'm being completely honest. And especially we're now being told, we were told Jen Cohen in her November State of Troy newsletter wrote this, and I will I'm obviously seeing that, and I think it's really, I think she said obviously they're trying to get Notre Dame earlier. It didn't work out, and say what you want about Notre Dame, but you got to give the Irish credit for having a contingency plan in the event that playing USC fell through, because pretty much the moment it was announced that USC would not be playing USC and Notre Dame would not be playing each other, Notre Dame quickly pivoted and executed their contingency plan. They were ready for this. And hard to say USC was too, especially when Jen Cohen committed to playing at least one non-conference Power 4 opponent. And then obviously USC, I think, wants to avoid an FCS opponent. We'll see if that happens too. But really, what Cohen said was, as part of her newsletter back in November was, and I quote, "That is why, of our 3 non-conference games each year, we will schedule at least one Power 4 opponent. If that opponent is a rival with whom we share a long and storied tradition, all the better." That just pretty much shows that USC may be backing out on that promise. So we'll see what happens. I hope USC can figure this out, but definitely as more time goes by, it just really, I think, isn't a great look if you don't have all your non-conference games ready by the time your conference is ready to unveil its schedule. So we'll see what USC does. Do they ultimately end up just going and throwing it on one of their 2 bye weeks? Or do they just try to find someone? Because really, I would like to see USC play someone competitive. Yes, I get the Big Ten schedule is difficult. You don't see me looking at, Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana, even Penn State, Washington, and going, that's a cakewalk. Like, no, I get that it's hard, especially with how good Indiana's gotten in the last 2 years since Kurt Cignetti took over. But at the same time, I also want to see USC follow up and play competitive non-conference matchups. That's what's so great about Notre Dame and why it's so disappointing that it's gone away. But we will see what happens with all of it. But yeah, obviously, hopefully everything will work out. Obviously, we'll keep y'all posted on what I hear, if anything, and when that gets announced. But hopefully USC can find someone competitive to play in week 0. Then before I move on to men's basketball, I do want to touch on Gary Patterson, who spoke last week who had his introductory press conference. And he spoke about how he wanted to just work with his players' skill sets and be able to adapt on the fly, which I think can be great for USC. Obviously, we'll see. Obviously, going to depend on the personnel he has, but that's been something he's been great about his whole career. Then another note, with Doug Belk being out, Gary Patterson is bringing in Paul Gonzalez to replace Doug Belk. Gonzalez was previously with Baylor. So I like that Lincoln Riley is letting Patterson bring in the coaches that he wants underneath him on his defensive staff. So I really do like that Lincoln Riley, even though it initially seemed open, is letting his defensive coordinator bring in the coaches he wants. Obviously, Eric Henderson is interviewed with the Dallas Cowboys. We'll see where that goes. But 2 coaches for sure staying are defensive line coach Sean Nua, and while not a defensive coach, offensive line coach Zach Hansen is staying. And those I'm fine with, especially Hansen I definitely don't want to see leave. Nua, obviously, if Patterson thought he should go, I can get behind that pretty much, is how I'd look at that one. So that's pretty much, obviously, everything that's been going on there. So now let's move on to men's basketball, who lost a tough 73-72 game at Iowa on Wednesday. Cam Woods led with 33 points. Jacob Kofi led with 7 rebounds. And Woods also led with 3 assists. So it was a roller coaster type game. Especially pretty much, it was just back and forth. USC would be get way ahead, then fall behind, and then just didn't look like they're going to win. But then suddenly they're close. And then they take the lead at the last minute. And USC had a chance to win. I was impressed with the game that Cam Woods had. And I know I've been kind of wondering, I thought he was only out for death, but I gotta give credit to him. He's playing a lot better than he was when he first got here. So hopefully he continues to play like this. And then USC did have a chance to win it, but then there was a tough foul. Bad foul by Jerry Easter II that sent Iowa to the free throw line to win it. And then Woods' shot at the buzzer missed. But then on Saturday, USC got a 78-75 win against Rutgers. Ezra Alzar leading with 21 points, Kofi leading with 10 rebounds, and Woods with 3 assists. So also Kofi with 10 rebounds, Woods with 4 assists, And then while USC was in control for most of the game and didn't surrender a lead after the first few minutes, it also saw double-digit leads shrink in the final 5 minutes, and especially once Rutgers just started applying full-court press. And really was frustrating. That's something I think USC does need to work on, because really only Chad Baker-Mazara seemed to know what to do in those situations. Everyone else just kind of panicked and freaked out and almost allowed the Scarlet Knights to tie the game. So USC now sits at 16-6 on the year, 5-6 in Big Ten play. And they're one of the last 4 teams in the latest in Joe Lunardi's bracketology. They're an 11 seed who has to play a first 4 game. So up next for USC, they host Indiana, who is 15-7 overall, 6-5 in Big Ten play. On Tuesday night, that'll be on Peacock at 7 p.m. We're traveling to Penn State on Sunday for a 9 a.m. game on Big Ten Network. The Nittany Lions are 10-12 on the year, 1-10 in Big Ten play. So USC has a chance to get a big home win over Indiana and then go on the road and take care of business against Penn State. And I think what is their final road trip of the season, or road trip out to the Midwest, they'll play Ohio State after Penn State. Then women's basketball got a 81-69 win against number 8 Iowa on Thursday. So Cara Dunn led with 25 points. Dunn also led with 12 rebounds, and Jazzy Davidson led with 4 assists. So it was a really kind of a crazy game too, kind of roller coastery, where USC jumped ahead, then allowed Iowa to catch up, but then USC held on for arguably the biggest win of the season. So shout out Woohoo Sue for putting me courtside. And then, but then USC carried that momentum into yesterday with a 71-39 win against Rutgers, with Dunn leading with 18 points, Williams 11 rebounds, and Davidson 5 assists. So the first half was close, and obviously Rutgers started strong, but after that it was USC. Then the second half was USC all the rest of the way, and just really impressed with how Williams was playing and just really pulling down 11 rebounds. I was really impressed with her. Then I actually got to meet Chad Bowden at halftime, got a photo with him, so really excited about the work he's doing at the football team. And then also shout out to Felice, Julie, and Jim for putting me courtside. So USC now sits at 13-9 overall, 5-6 in Big Ten play. They are a 10 seed in Charlie Cream's ESPN bracketology. So up next, the Trojans go on the road, where they'll take on Northwestern on Thursday, or on Wednesday, on Thursday at 6 p.m. on Peacock. The Wildcats are 8-14 overall, 2-9 in Big Ten play. And then at Illinois, 16-6 overall, 6-5 in conference. That'll be on Sunday at 10 a.m. on Big Ten Plus. So USC needs to stay hot at home, hot after the big wins at home this week. So men's volleyball, who is now number 4 in the country. So before I get into how they're winning against Ohio State, it sounds like the NIL tournament that they were supposed to take place in at Honda Center in Anaheim was canceled. So we'll see what happens in terms of who they'll play this week, whether they'll still play Long Beach State or Hawaii. So any further changes, I'll make sure to report on here on Behind the Caution Tape. So the 4th-seeded men's volleyball team got a 3-2 win over 13th-ranked Ohio State. So a long, long game for anyone who was watching that one. And it was still a really good game, though. So USC won 25-19, 21-25, 25-27, 27-25, 15-11 on Friday. So Dylan Klein led with 20 kills and 2 aces. Wesley Smith led with 7 blocks. Caleb Blanchett led with 32 assists, and Blanchett also led with 14 digs. And it was a hard-fought battle the entire time. And I just knew that Ohio State was going to bring the fight after just how they played against UCLA the night before. I think the set went 48-46, so deep into the 40s. You don't see that every night. But yeah, a lot of credit to Ohio State. That was a great fight by them. It was great seeing my former coach, Stephen Duho. So USC now sits at 5-0 on the season. And up next, USC has 2 games this week. They'll host 7-1 CSUN on Wednesday. That'll be at 7 p.m. on the Big Ten Plus. And then UC Santa Barbara on Saturday at 5 p.m. on the Big Ten Plus, with the Gauchos sitting at 5-3 on the year. USC has 2 challenging matchups this week, but should both be really good battles that I'm definitely excited to follow along with. So also a bit of news from baseball this week. They have their alumni games this weekend. I think the Old Timers game is at 11 a.m., followed by the actual game, the alumni game, at 1 p.m. So definitely exciting times to go check out Dedeaux Field, which still is under construction. So while the field's actually ready, just everything from offices, press box, and concession stands aren't finished. So baseball games are free this year. So even though USC said it would be done, I think it's definitely tough for the program, but obviously, like, any school obviously is trying to finish their football facility too, so hard to blame them there. And according to Ryan Karchi in his Times of Troy article, he did say this at the end of it, for what it's worth, and I quote, he said this, and I quote, "For what it's worth, Andy Stankiewicz, who just led the Trojans to their first NCAA tournament in a decade, has been very understanding of the whole situation." So just wanted to bring that out there. So games are free this year, so definitely be sure to check it out if you can. And then beach volleyball actually has their media day in literally like today. So I will be actually going to cover it, and to cover head coach Dane Blanton and at student athletes Ashley Pater and Kennedy Coakley. So hoping to secure some interviews and get an episode out from there later this week. So I'll definitely be there. I'll have some coverage on the ground from the Costa Mesa Marriott. So really excited to go cover it this week. So lacrosse has their first game on Sunday against Cal at Rawlinson Stadium. So Lax will make their Rawlinson Stadium debut. That'll be on Big Ten Plus at noon. So women's water polo, who was number 2 in the country heading in this week, took part in the Triton Invitational in La Jolla, so hosted by UC San Diego. So on Friday, they beat Claremont Mudd Scripps 23-4. Megan McInich led with 5 goals. Anna Reed had 10 saves and 4 goals allowed, playing the whole game. So USC dominated CMS from start to finish. Then 2 games on Saturday. The first one was a 19-12 win over 12th ranked UC San Diego, the host, and Emily Osmus led with 6 goals. Reed had 8 saves and 12 goals allowed, playing the whole game. So USC was never behind, but UCSD did have moments where they fought hard with the Trojans. Then the second game was a 15-11 win over 7th ranked Long Beach State. Osmus led with 3 goals. Reed had 12 saves and 11 goals allowed, played the whole game. So LBSU did strike first, but USC quickly was able to take the lead and hold on. And then on Sunday, USC lost to 3rd-ranked UCLA 12-9. Ava Stryker led with 3 goals. Reed had 8 saves, 12 goals allowed, and played the whole game. UCLA was in control of most, and USC couldn't make a comeback at the end. So, the thing that's becoming clear is it seems like Anna Reed is going to be the primary goalie this year for the team. And then USC now sits at 8-1 the year, like will be 2nd or 3rd in the country based on everything else. So USC will have another game against Long Beach State. That'll be this Saturday. That'll be on Saturday at noon in Long Beach. So Beach will come ready. So USC needs to come to play, especially with the loss against especially with the loss last week to the Trojans. So USC. So yeah, for track and field, USC took part in the Lost Dodds invite on Friday. That was hosted by Kansas State in Manhattan, and got the win in women's long jump. So up next for them is they'll take part in the New Mexico Collegiate Classic in Albuquerque, hosted by the Lobos. That'll be on February 6th and 7th. So another chance to compete next weekend. I'll talk about the key results next week. Swim and dive got a 174-126 win against UCLA on the women's side, and finished the season 7-3 in dual meets. So up next for them is the Big Ten Championships in Minneapolis from February 18th through 21st. The men's team will host UNLV this Friday at 1 p.m. They beat them once already, and beat them again to close out the season and try to improve to 4-5 in dual meets. Men's tennis had 2 games this year, went up to the Bay, got a 4-3 win at number 23 Cal on Friday. So USC got the doubles points, and we got wins from Branko Duric, Max Exted, and Andrin Casanova. But then the following day lost 4-1 at 3rd-ranked Stanford. So the Cardinal got the doubles points, and Nathan Trouvé was the only Trojan to get a win. So USC now sits at 4-3 on the year and has a doubleheader coming up on Sunday when they'll take on 4-1 UNLV at 10 a.m., followed by 0-2 UCI at 2 p.m. So opportunities for USC to come home and reset after being on the road the last 2 weekends. So women's tennis also split their weekend up in the Bay. They got a 4-3 win at 11th-ranked Stanford on Friday. So USC got the doubles point and won the doubles point and got singles wins from Imi Haddad, Eugenia Zozaya, and Danny Burrell. But then on the following day, lost 4-2 to Cal. So Cal got the doubles point win, and Josiah and Christian Mahendran were the only Trojans to get singles wins. So USC now sits at 6-2 on the year. So up next for them, they'll take on Pepperdine on February 22nd at 2 p.m. So USC will have the opportunity to rest over the next couple weeks and then get back to work. Men's golf finished tied 5th, so 18 over par, 858 total score in the Southwestern Invitational that was at the North Ranch Country Club in Thousand Oaks, hosted by the Pepperdine Waves. So the individual scores were tied 9th was Nicholas Dominguez finishing even. Tied 12th was Jack Buchanan, 5 over par. Tied 30th, Jaden Dumdumava, 8 over par. Tied 49th, Luke Stock, 14 over par, and tied 61st, Antonio Safa, 17 over par. So up next was the Desimone Invitational, hosted by Cal Lake Merced Country Club in Daly City. That'll be on March 9th and 10th. So the team has some time off for about a month, and it's the home stretch for the rest of the season. Women's golf is currently in tied 14th, 19 over par, 303 total score in the Therese Hessian Regional Challenge. That's at Palos Verdes Golf Club, hosted by Ohio State. And it's started yesterday and runs through tomorrow. So after one day, that's where they sit in tied 14th. The action continues today and tomorrow, and I'll bring full results next week. So last week I went 4-0 in the games I went to. So the 2 wins against women's basketball, and then the 1 win for men's basketball and men's volleyball. So I'm 42-15-1 on the school year, 353, 134, and 1 all time. 7-3 at men's basketball this year, 7-4 at women's basketball, and 3-0 at men's volleyball. So my plans for this week, and these could change just given some potential things I got going on, are for sure men's volleyball Wednesday, and I'm about to head to beach volleyball media day right now. So obviously a lot to cover there. I'll be sure to, obviously keep y'all posted on if anything changes. And if you want to know if I'll be at a game for sure, if I upload the game day graphic, that means I will be there. So check for those. And then, like I said, that's going to do it for us here on Behind the Caution Tape. Thank you again for tuning in. It means the world to me. Be sure to check out my merch line and buy some. I'll put a link below this episode in the description. Be sure to follow me on social media at CrashLit on Instagram and X. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Excuse me. Wherever you listen. I'll see you all later this week for the episode that will come to you from the Costa Mesa Marriott, and where I cover the USC Beach Volleyball at the MPSF Beach Volleyball Media Days. See y'all then, and fight on.